start by introducing Kim Peterson from the Pierce County Human Services Department. Kim has worked there for over 26 years. She was a case manager for 13 years, supervisor for 7, and the social services supervisor for the last 6 years. Kim oversees the Medicaid and health home programs, which include about 100 case managers, 6 registered nurse case managers, or perhaps it's even more by now, and 5 office assistants. After Kim has presented to us on their programs, which include Community First Choice, COPES, PACE, and New Freedom, we will be taking questions. And then I'll give you some information about upcoming community forums and a little update on where the mustard seed is today. For now, please welcome Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is actually, I love this opportunity to be able to talk about our programs. So as Maureen said, I've been with Human Services, Aging and Disability Resources for almost 26 and a half years. And in that time, we started out with just 2 supervisors and about 30, 35 case managers. We are now at 10 supervisors and 100 case managers in addition to our nursing case managers. So what our program does is our staff go to clients' homes and make sure that they do an assessment, they see what they're eligible for, and then they also look at the picture of what other services are needed in their homes to keep them safe at home. The whole goal for our program is to keep people in their homes safely as long as possible. We realize that is where most people want to be, is in their homes. And then if a person does want to move into a residential setting, it's our job to help them do that. So our staff, some of them are broken down by areas. So we have some staff who serve across the bridge, and then we have some staff who serve some of our more rural areas of Eastern Pierce County, such as Eatonville, Ashford, LB, Carbonado, South Prairie. Some of our staff serve bilingual. Our bilingual staff serve clients who speak languages other than English. We currently serve clients in 18 different languages within our program, which really limits our need to use interpreters. We believe in serving clients in Pierce County in the language and culture that they're comfortable with and familiar with. And that way we're able to provide services that are culturally appropriate to our clients. So the way that you would access our services, since they are Medicaid, is that individuals go to DSHS, Home and Community Services, and they apply with a Medicaid application. And sometimes our ADRC staff will help them fill out that application. They can do it online. They can have a family member help. And then once they do that financial application to make sure that they have under the resources to qualify for services. So that means that their resources have to be at or below $2,000 a month. So that's things like bank accounts, CDs, anything that can be liquidated as an asset, but it doesn't include their house. So they have to be under that $2,000 threshold in liquid assets. And then they have an assessment. So once they qualify financially, then a social worker comes out and does what we call a care assessment. It's a comprehensive reporting tool that looks at all their activities of daily living. It looks at what type of help they've had in the past 7 days. And I'll talk a little bit more about the assessment in a few minutes. But then once the assessment's done, they're found eligible, they're functionally eligible, they're financially eligible. It gives an amount of hours that they qualify for to have a caregiver there. So that whole assessment is what determines it. And we start with questions. We get the basic questions for the assessment, the demographics, those individuals that are important in the client's life. So their durable power of attorney, if they have one, who is their emergency contact, their doctor, things like that. And then we start taking our clients through the actual in the last 7 days, what kind of help have you needed with this particular task? So it might be transferring on or off a chair. It might be getting in and out of bed, with their bath or shower. We have all these different areas that we ask them about with their activities of daily living. And then we also want to know who helped you with housework, shopping, meal preparation. Were you able to do that? Somebody that's helped you do that. We find out what medications they're taking, what their diagnoses are, if they're in any kind of treatment program like physical therapy or chemotherapy. And then we really focus in on limitations. So the things that the individual can do as well as what they cannot do. And all of that goes into this assessment that's an electronic based assessment. And there's an algorithm behind the scenes then that puts them in a specific category and then determines how many hours of personal care that they qualify for. So it isn't the social worker who says, I think you need this many hours. It's this very complex assessment tool that we use statewide that determines how many hours the individual is eligible for. So then once we get to that, then we find out, would you like to have a home care agency provide those hours, or do you have somebody in your life that you would like to contract to provide those personal care hours? So then we get a caregiver on board to help the client. And these assessments are done initially by DSHS when the individual applies. And then if they're going to remain in home on services, once the caregiver is set up, then all those cases for Pierce County come to our office. If the individual is going to go into a residential setting, then the state social workers keep those cases and they monitor those cases. An individual now, based on their monthly income, they may or may not have to pay towards the cost of their care. It used to be that they could keep about $1,200 a month, and that changed in this last legislative session, which we were thrilled about. They can now keep $2,523 a month. So any income that they have monthly beyond that would go towards the cost of their care. But that made a difference. So in our office alone, after that change occurred on July 4th, we only have 4 individuals in our office who have to pay towards the cost of their care, and it was hundreds. So we were really happy to see that change so that it makes it more affordable for our clients to be able to pay their rent and get their groceries and pay their utility bills and buy food for themselves, their animals. And it was really a struggle when they were only able to keep about $1,200. So once the client comes to our office, we do administer that care assessment at least annually. So within 364 days of the previous assessment. And that's if things are remaining stable and nothing has happened, an individual didn't fall or break a hip or have some kind of major surgery that changed their needs, then we go out once a year to do the assessment. And if something happened that would be a significant change in their condition, then what we do is what we call a significant change assessment. So we're made aware of there's been a change in the condition of this client. We need to capture that in the assessment. We'll do an assessment before the annual assessment is due and capture the additional help that we believe is needed for the client. And significant changes can happen throughout the year. So a client may have multiple things that happen where their care needs are greater, and then they may go back to baseline once they improve. So the assessment is done in person for the most part, although during COVID, we were doing a lot of virtual work. Our office does now go out to see clients as part of the assessment process. And we believe it's very important to lay eyes on a living situation. So not only to get the answers to the type of help an individual needs, but really to see what their environment looks like. Because when we go out, we see so much. We realize, oh my gosh, those steps do not look safe. Could we maybe get a ramp in there or some kind of railing? And laying eyes on a situation really helps us see with our clinical eyes what other types of services would be helpful in that home. So the program that pays for the in-home services is called Community First Choice. The acronym is CFC. And that covers the personal care program, as well as if an individual needed a lifeline button. So one of those emergency response buttons, that is also a service that they could receive on the Community First Choice program. So it covers the caregiver, it covers that lifeline button, and it also covers if an individual goes into a residential setting, it will pay for those services and the daily rate at the residential setting. So that is Community First Choice. We may see hours with Community First Choice where a person qualifies for like 30 hours a month. So they basically need just more of housekeeping errands, a little bit of help with their medications maybe. And then we see clients that are completely bedbound, who may be on oxygen or tube feeding, paraplegic, quadriplegic, where their hours may be much higher. So you may see somebody who's in the range of 390 hours per month. And the hours are served however the individual wants them served. It's a very client-centered program. So the client gets to choose who their caregiver is. They get to choose how they want their allocated hours used. Do they want somebody there every day for a block of time? Do they want split shifts? Do they want 5 days a week, 7 days a week? So depending on the amount of hours they have, the individual gets to choose how they want those utilized. As well as, again, do they want home care agency to come and provide the services? We have 10 contracted home care agencies in Pierce County. Or do they have somebody in their family or a friend that wants to go through the process of contracting to become their paid caregiver? And that process now goes through an entity called Consumer Direct Washington, and they onboard individual providers who don't work for home care agencies. So they would just onboard with them, and then the client could bring that person on to become their paid caregiver. And again, dictating what the schedule is and how they like their hours utilized. So Community First Choice covers all of that. And some of our clients may also be on an additional program. Community First Choice is a Medicaid program. There's another program called the COPES program. And that program covers things like if they do need an environmental modification or a piece of medical equipment that Medicaid doesn't cover, or they need some type of behavioral assistance. So maybe they need somebody to come and work with them as a therapist who will come to their home. Those are all things that we cover through the COPES program. And county to county, it's different which services are contracted under that particular program. And so an individual has to qualify for it. I mean, they can even get something like, we do a monthly wellness letter that focuses on the condition that individual have. So maybe, they're diabetic. And so they may get a monthly wellness letter that helps talk about keeping blood sugars level and things like that. So really a specialized letter for them. So the COPES program does just cover some of those ancillary services that aren't covered under CFC or other Medicaid services. Anything through COPES would need to be the payment of last resort. So it would have to be something that can't be covered through the insurance or can't be covered through their Medicaid insurance or any other insurance. So some of our clients are on just Community First Choice, some are on Community First Choice and COPES. So it just really depends on what they qualify for. And we work directly with the financial workers over at DSHS, and they help us determine what the client is financially eligible for. So they maintain this financial worker at DSHS the whole time they're on Medicaid services, whether they're residential or community. So they've got a financial worker, and then they have an assigned social worker in our office. So when the cases come over to us, we look at, what language do they speak? Do we need to assign this to a bilingual case manager? Where do they live? And it really helps us decide which social worker we're going to assign that case to. And in some of the cases in our office, we've had for a very long time. I know when I was a case manager, I had cases for the whole 13 years that I was a case manager, where I was able to really follow the clients. We get to know them well. If they're on your caseload for a period of time, you get to know the client, you get to know the family, you get to know the pets, you get to know the whole picture, which is, I think, extremely helpful because then you can tell if things have changed in the situation or if something's different and we're familiar with it, whereas if it gets passed around to lots of different case managers, it's hard to become really familiar with that particular case. Okay, so we also have a program in Pierce County that's called the PACE program. And that is a program for individuals who are 55 and over and in specific zip code areas, which in Pierce County is most of the county. And what PACE is it's a program of all-inclusive care. So again, they apply for Medicaid, they have that same care assessment, but then it's a managed care type program where multi-care is actually the PACE, they have the PACE contract in Pierce County. So the individual, we do the assessment, and then we literally hand the case back over to multi-care, and they arrange everything. They arrange doctors, specialists, if the individual needs transportation, if they want to go to Adulta Health, all of that is arranged by multi-care through their systems. And so our case managers don't do any of that case management. They simply do the annual assessment and then hand it off to the PACE provider. That program just started for us in January of 2022. And right now, I think we have 10 individuals on that program. We're really onboarding about 2 to 3 per month. And it really is a specialized program where the individual knows that everything is going to go through multi-care in that system. They do get maybe some more additional services because multi-care has contracts with additional services that may not be covered under the basic medical insurance. But for some clients, they don't want to lose their case manager. They really like the doctors they have, and they don't want to have to switch doctors. And if they're not covered under the multi-care contract, then they would need to go to the multi-care doctors. So that program, again, is just getting off the ground. It has been around in a couple other counties for several years. King County, it's been around, 8 or 10 years. So of course, their numbers are much higher in that county of individuals who choose that program. And that PACE can also be received whether in the home or in a residential setting. So it can continue to get that, they call it a wraparound program. And really, multi-care is responsible for addressing all the needs identified for that particular client. And then we have a unique program that's only offered in King County and Pierce County, and that is our New Freedom program. And New Freedom, again, it's part of the Medicaid suite of services. And instead of getting, after that care assessment, instead of getting an amount of base hours the caregiver can work, it gives us a budget. So it basically says you have this much money that you can spend each month toward your services. And so the clients who are on New Freedom, they may choose, okay, I want this many hours of a caregiver, and then I want to take some of my budget and I want to bank it and save for a particular item that my insurance doesn't cover. And we've seen some pretty unique care plans with regard to the New Freedom program. We've seen where the program purchased a greenhouse for an individual to be able to grow their own organic vegetables while also addressing arthritic hands. So then that helped them to keep their mobility. So if we're able to justify it in their plan of care, some of these New Freedom purchases have become pretty creative. We've seen where they purchase, a special bed that Medicaid won't cover. And so they'll save their money for that. Medicaid doesn't cover anything with regard to modifying a van that's an accessible van. So they may use part of their budget to pay for a modification to a vehicle or get a particular wheelchair or scooter that isn't covered by their insurance, or particular supplements that aren't covered by their insurance. We've seen clients use it for acupuncture or other massage services, again, things that aren't covered by their insurance. The New Freedom program is very client-centered. The clients have to tell us what it is they want to use their money for. The case manager then helps them with their budget, monitors the budget to make sure that, there's enough money to pay for the particular items, and to keep the client informed of, how much money is still in their budget. They can change month to month how many hours they want their caregiver to work. So If they need more care one month and another month, they can choose to use their budget towards that. With that program, a client does need to be cognitively intact to be able to participate. So they have to be able to make their own decisions or have a legal representative like a power of attorney or someone that can help with that. But it really is client-centered, so the case managers aren't the ones that make the decisions on how that budget is going to be spent. So again, that's a unique program that's only in Pierce County and King County. We have about 300 clients who are on the New Freedom program who live throughout the county. And it's great too. We have some of our bilingual staff who also support that program. So we're not limited to just English-speaking clients who can access New Freedom. So those are the programs, and I will send links that have Q&A for these particular programs because it literally breaks down assets and how do I become eligible. And so I'll send all those links to Maureen so that she can paste them in to the presentation. So do you have questions at this point?
Julie, can you look and see if there are any questions on Facebook? I'm not seeing any questions here on the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, sure. No questions on Facebook as of now.
Okay, thank you. Kim, how do you choose which program a particular client goes on?
Great question. So when a client initially comes on services, when the DSHS social worker meets with them for the assessment, they literally cover all the available programs in the county. And obviously, we're not going to spend a lot of time with PACE for an individual who's under 55 because we know they don't qualify just because they don't meet the age threshold. So we'd talk about PACE, but we would just say, you don't qualify for it yet. In the future, we might be a program we look at. But we do list out all the different programs. And then annually, when we go out to see our clients for their annual assessment, we again cover all the programs that are available. So they may want to switch. Sometimes there's something they want. We had something come up recently. Oh, it was for a service animal. So Medicaid doesn't cover cost for a service animal, which is kind of surprising. But New Freedom, they can actually, it was a vest, it was a halter vest for a service animal. And so that would be something that if they were on New Freedom, they could get that covered, right? So they could budget it for that because you can pay for costs towards a service animal in that particular program. So sometimes as we're looking at the needs of the individual, we realize, oh gosh, those would really align well with New Freedom. And then we talk about New Freedom, we have brochures we can give to them. And then we'll actually have a New Freedom consultant talk with them. So we have staff who are designated New Freedom, who know the program inside and out. And there's at least one on each of our teams so that if somebody does want to switch from their Community First Choice program to New Freedom, that they can stay with the same team and receive that new program. And they can also move back and forth. So they may be on New Freedom for a year to get some covered services. And then they may choose to, I don't want to do that budget thing anymore. So I want to go back to the regular Community First Choice, and they can go that route. So, and then sometimes if we realize they need like an environmental modification, they're just on Community First Choice, we think, oh gosh, they could really use a modification through COPES, then we will reach out to financial and say, do they qualify for COPES in addition to their Community First Choice? The financial worker says yes or no. If they do, then we just add that COPES service, and then we can pay for the modification or the piece of medical equipment. COPES also does cover adult day health and adult day care services. So if we think that that's something that could really benefit them, then we'll do the work to help see if they're eligible.
Okay. Is there a financial ceiling for what COPES would pay for, as far as an environmental modification? If somebody needed a walk-in bathtub or things, is there an upper limit on what they would provide?
So the top of that is, our max is $39,900, I believe it is, might be $995, but it's just under $40,000. So what happens when they need a modification is we have multiple contractors in Pierce County that we have contracts with, and we send an email out to all of them saying, we try and take pictures of the job. This is what it looks like, the bathroom, or if we're going to do a ramp, here's the front porch we want it on. And then we send pictures to the contractors, and then we say, can you give us a bid? So the contractors, all of them or a couple of them, may submit bids. And then the case manager and supervisor will look at those bids and talk with the client and decide which of the bids they're going to accept. Then they write it up in what's called an exception to rule. And it's in that electronic assessment we do. And they explain it to me, what it is that's going to be done. And then they also send me the written bid. And then I make the decision of whether or not we're going to pay for that. It is rare that I deny it. And the justification for me is we may be paying for a $20,000 modification. The individual in the nursing home, if they had to go into a nursing home because we didn't do that modification, that's going to be way more expensive, right? So it makes sense to keep the person in their own home where they want to be. And yeah, it's going to be an upfront cost, but at the same time, it's going to keep them in their home and keep them out of a more expensive setting that they don't want to be in. So lately, I've approved 5 roll-in showers. With construction costs, of course, they've gone up. They're ranging right now between $19,000 and $25,000. So, I mean, that's completely, roll-in shower and ADA. Maybe they're putting in a higher toilet. Maybe they're putting in a counter, where they could roll under with their wheelchair. So I really look at those bids. If I question them, we do have staff who work in our housing program who can look at those. And they're guys who work in the construction field, and I'll send it to them and just say, what do you think? Does this seem, high or about average? And, they agree that with the cost of construction, it's just more expensive. But we do a lot of modifications. We don't do modifications in apartments. Mm-hmm. The property management should be doing those, but we look at, individuals in their homes. And even if they don't own their own home, we still can get a modification done. We just need a landlord's approval. We have a form the landlord signs saying we understand that this is going to, can be a permanent fixture in my home. And so they agree to it if they'll allow it. We'll do bathroom modifications, door widening, railings, ramps. Those are the primary. Oh, and stair lifts.
Okay.
Yeah. So if an individual can't get upstairs in their bedroom and or bathroom that they use or upstairs, then we can consider a stair lift, which they're pretty amazing. And, they're the ones that actually we do they sit in the chair and it takes them all the way up to the next floor. So I just approved one of those this week.
Okay. So let me give you a hypothetical situation. Someone's in a bad accident and has multiple fractures, and they are temporarily unable to really function on their own, but it's probably temporary. It's still worth their while to fill out the forms and get these services, right?
Absolutely. So we've had clients who have been on services for a short period of time, maybe due to a car accident, maybe due to a high-risk pregnancy. So they come on services, they get the help they need, and then maybe they improve to the point where they don't need a caregiver, and then they can choose to go off services. I have a wonderful story of a client I had way back when in Buckley. He was injured in a football accident. So he became a quadriplegic due to a football accident at his high school. And told me from the very beginning, I am not going to remain on this program my entire life. I don't want to just, he called it, be on state services. And so he ended up going to college and he got a degree and he's now an architect. And as soon as he got his first job, he said to me, he goes, I'm done. I'm graduated. I have a job. And he was just thrilled. And, that was his whole goal, was to get off services. So one of the things that is also provided in Washington State now is supported employment. So if we do have clients who want to go back into the workforce in some capacity, there are contracted agencies that will work with them. They'll help do an assessment, look at jobs that individual could do, and they'll work with them to get some, whether part-time or full-time employment. So that's also something. So we do ask that at the assessment, are you interested in going back to work? And if so, would you like somebody to help you with that? And we literally just check a box in the assessment and it sends the referral over. So that, because we do have some clients who work or who've gone off services to resume employment. Yeah, not all of our clients are on services forever. And there is the part I did mention, there is a state recovery. So if an individual owns a home and they go on these services, there will be a lien put on their property unless it's in some kind of trust or there's a spouse involved. So that's a reason that it's important we explain that to clients when they initially go on services so that they understand that there may be a lien on the property that will be collected at the time that they pass. So it's not, the property doesn't have to be sold while they're alive. It would be after the fact.
Okay. And does that lien apply to everyone who owns their own home who goes on services, no matter how long they're on? I mean, I imagine the amount varies, obviously, but.
Yeah, the amount varies, and we don't see a lot of clients who own their own homes or own them without a spouse involved. So if there is a spouse, there's a way to, and I don't know all the financial ins and outs, but I will send you the links because it actually talks about that. Is that they could basically put it in the spouse's name so that there isn't the lien. So it's very, I think sometimes I've had family members who have accessed our services, and I always encourage them to talk to an elder law attorney to see how this would impact their particular loved one. In some cases, it's not a big deal, but in some cases it could be a big deal. So really doing some thoughtful planning if there is the estate recovery piece.
Okay. And for people who are nervous about going through the Medicaid application process, can you, just from your experience, not that you're the person who does it, but just from your experience, can you give us a high-level overview of how that is and how onerous it is?
So it does ask a lot of questions, basically about assets. And so there is a link to be able to do it through Apple Health Online, fill it out. They generally need to get some bank statements just showing truly how much money is in the bank, and if there is a CD, what the value of the CD is. So it does take some time. I mean, it can be done on paper. Online's best because then it's electronically sent to DSHS. Our staff over at the ADRC, I think Matt has done a presentation, that whole group, they can also help with initial applications for individuals who can't do them. And when they're applying, there's also a financial worker. So if they have questions, they can talk to this financial worker just to make sure they're doing it right. So if they fill out an application and they miss some things, the financial worker is going to reach out to them to get the missing documents. So it's not like it goes in a black hole and there's no follow-up. That financial worker is going to reach out and say, we still need your bank statements, or, we still need a copy of what your CD is worth, or show us your irrevocable burial, plan, so that showing that you can't cash that out and take money. So the financial worker knows all the ins and outs, and so they'll be able to assist. Okay. But the application is, I mean, it's not basic easy, but it's not very complicated. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone else on the Zoom call have any questions for Kim?
Hi, Kim. I had one question.
Sure.
You mentioned that when someone qualifies for in-home services, they can have somebody they know be that caregiver. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how a family member or friend becomes a caregiver?
Sure.
Thanks.
So that's, again, a very new process. We used to do that contracting right in our office, and it's anybody can become a caregiver except for a legal spouse. So if they're legally married, the spouse can't get paid to be the caregiver. So now the way the process works, we gave that up the state contracted with a separate entity called Consumer Direct Washington. That started last year, and you actually go to Consumer Direct Washington, or the individual provider can apply online, start the process, and they initially fill out an employment application. It's pretty basic. They have to do a background check. Background checks do have to be conducted every 2 years for caregivers, or individual providers is what they're called. There's a list of crimes that if they have that crime in their history, they're disqualified from being a caregiver. So once the background check's done, if there's something on there that is on that disqualification list that's actually listed in RCW, then they can't work as a caregiver. But there are instances where something will come back on a background and it's evaluated to see, can this individual still work for this client? Then you talk to the client and say, here, there's some issues on the background. Are you comfortable with this? And it's a collaborative and cooperative process. If the client says, yes, I still want this person, then they can continue the process. And it can be a family member. It can be, someone they know through someone else, someone from their church, but the person just has to go through this whole process. So once they get the background check done, they've applied, they've done everything that CD1 needs them to do, then they have to complete training. So they have 120 days to complete 72 hours worth of basic training that goes over aspects of caregiving, the do's and don'ts, how to properly turn a client in bed, all these different things that will help them understand, because not everybody's been a caregiver. So helping them understand that caregiving role. And then every year they have to take a class, 12 hours of continuing education. So that's a requirement. They may also have to get a home care aide certification, which means they do their training, then they have to take a test, and they get certified through the Department of Health. And then every year they have to update their certification. So just pay to have certification updated and then take their continuing education 12 hours. And then we give them a care plan. So they know it's literally their job description. So here's what the client needs and here's what we're paying you to do. So they know exactly the task that they're paid to do.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I had a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
And these are small ones, but first I'd like to say, Kim, this has just been great. I think thank you for this presentation. The PACE program and the zip codes, is that available on the Key Peninsula? Because there's several zip codes out here. Or where would we find that?
I am going to send that in a link, because I believe that I'm almost positive Gig Harbor's in there. I'm not sure if Key Pen is, but I will send the links with the address, with the zip codes.
Yeah, because at least theoretically, that would be a great thing to have out here. But I haven't, this is the first time we've had information, or at least that I've been able to find information about it other than in King County. So that's great. And also another little thing, can you just clarify for me? At one point you said that the limit of the money that a person can keep per month is $2,500. But I thought that initially the limit for Medicaid application was $2,000. So I skipped a gear there somewhere.
Sure. So let me clarify that. So the liquid assets would be the 2,000. So that's what's in your bank account or a CD you can cash out. The 2523 is their monthly income. So that's how much they're getting per month. So it shows Social Security and maybe some kind of pension. So it's their total monthly income. And so that's why I was saying they used to only be able to keep like $1,200 and something.
Yeah.
And it baffled me how a client could live on that amount of money.
Yes.
Right? So I will just say that I did go with our board members to the legislators and really push to get this increased. And we were so thrilled when it was, because that's a big difference. That's a quality of life difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be able to keep $2,500, and with the cost of things today, I mean, that's still not, people aren't living large on that. So,
absolutely. As a caseworker, you know what that looks like.
yes. Yes,
It's not good. Well, thanks again.
you're welcome.
All right, if there are no other questions, I would like to thank him very much. This has been an absolutely fantastic presentation. There's so much valuable information here, and being able to record it and keep it handy for our clients and staff and so on to watch is really valuable for us. So we really appreciate it. And before everyone goes, I would like to let you know that in September, we have 2 other community forums. We have a presentation from the Children's Home Society and also one from the Red Barn out here, who does after school care for our children and teenagers. So stay tuned for the dates on those. And there may also be one on August 25th, yet to be determined. And if you haven't come by and seen our assisted living in progress of being built, we're moving forward really fast, and we're all excited about being able to have people living in there in this December in time for Christmas. So check us out on Facebook, on our website, or just do a drive-by and see how we're doing. And again, thank you, Kim, and we will see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.